So Gemini's new file search API is fantastic. It basically allows you to just drop in a document and then you can start chatting with it straight away. And it automatically chunks and indexes all of the information. So essentially we can replace our old complex RAG pipelines for something much simpler. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through exactly what the Gemini file search API is, how to create and store these documents inside of it, how to query it, and then how to then plug it into NA10 and a voice agent to get it working properly. And then at the end, I'll share some tips about how to get this working so that it's reliable and it works every time. So the problem is that the old way of creating a RAG system is quite complex. So you need to basically take the raw documents, we need to clean them and parse them. We then need to chunk them and index them into a vector database, something like Supabase or Pinecone, whatever that might be. But to create that sort of pipeline is not so simple. It's quite complex. If you've ever tried building one of those yourself, then you'll probably know. And then in terms of actually querying that database, it involves embedding the query, retrieving it, and then re-ranking it, and then plugging it into an LLM step to get an answer. So all of this is quite complex, especially if you're just wanting to build something that is able to just answer FAQs, for example. It's quite a complex system to have to build to do that. So all in all, it's a lot of moving parts. It gets messy, and the latency can be kind of on the higher end, which is not something that we want for voice agents. So what Gemini file search lets us do is chuck in a document, and then that is going to automatically do all of the chunking and the indexing. And then it has an inbuilt API step using an LLM to retrieve those answers. So it's super simple. So all you need to do is create this store, chuck in a document, and then everything is done. And you just need to set up the system to query that store. Plus, the amazing thing about this is that the storage and the query embeddings are actually completely free. All you're paying for is the initial indexing and the generation of the text, because it is technically an LLM step. But if you compare this to the option of a RAG pipeline like you might have used before, it actually stacks up really competitively, and in a lot of cases it would actually be cheaper. Plus, the other massive advantage is that there's no complex vector database to manage. So instead of having to set up Supabase, there's lots of coding involved potentially, setting up that pipeline, learning how to chunk and embed all of the information, and then having to manage that database as well. It can get pretty complex, and so this really just simplifies things, especially if you're selling these to other clients. Having a much simpler setup that you can replicate each time is going to be massively beneficial. So this is why I believe it's perfect for voice agents, because you can get this up and running in minutes as opposed to spending hours and hours setting up the entire RAG pipeline. And I'm going to show you exactly how you can do that for yourself in just a few moments. Plus, the fewer amount of steps basically involved in the querying process means that the latency will be naturally reduced, which is always beneficial, especially when we're talking about voice agents. And then of course, like I've kind of already talked about, there's no manual chunking or embedding. That's all handled via Google, which is fantastic. Plus, it's super voice friendly. So it delivers tight, direct answers optimized for text to speech, which we'll go through how to set up. And we can define the output in a way that our voice agent can use really simply in order to answer those questions or FAQs really effectively and in a really nice, natural tone. So to get started, you're going to download the template in the description where you're going to find this, which you can upload directly into NA10. So essentially what we're doing step by step is creating a file store. We're then uploading a document into the Google environment. And then we're going to take that uploaded document and plug it into the file store we just created. And then lastly, we're just going to set up the voice agent to be able to then query that file that is in the store. So if you've ever created custom RAG pipelines, you'll see that straight away, this is already way simpler than anything you probably have built before. And I'm going to show you exactly how you can set this up for yourself. So the first thing you need to do is get a Gemini API key. So you can head over to Google AI Studio, log into your account, and then you're going to click on Get API Key. Then you're going to click on Create API Key, and you can name this whatever you want. I'm just going to name this YouTube Demo. Now you might have to create a cloud project if you've not done one before. I'm just going to add this one to this current project, and I'm going to create the key. So now we have this API key. What you can do is go ahead and copy this, and you're going to come back into the workflow. And what we're going to do is go into the first step here. Okay, and you would need to set up a query authentication. Okay, so we're sending over a query, And so you could do this manually, but the easiest way by far is just to create an authentication, and then you can just use that over and over again. So you would head over to generic credential type, make sure this is set to query auth. Okay, then you create a new credential, and basically what you're going to do is type in key and then paste in that API key that you've just taken from your Google AI Studio account. And then you can just name this whatever you want. So I'm just going to name this YouTube demo. And then you're going to save this. Okay, so that's created successfully. So once that's set up, you don't really need to touch anything else except for this value here. So we're just basically setting what the file store name is going to be. So in my case, I've named this YouTube demo, but you can name this whatever you want. And then what we're going to do now is just execute this step. Okay, and you can see we've got this success message, basically just saying that the file store has been created and this is the name. So what I'm going to do is pin this data because we're going to need to use this for the later steps. Okay, and I'm going to save this. Now, next we need to upload a document into the Google environment. And so for this, I'm actually going to delete this step and I'm going to make sure we're going to the form submission workflow and we're going to execute this. Okay. Now this is basically just prompting us to upload any file, so like a custom knowledge base. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in a custom knowledge base that I made for a fictional business, which in this example is a roofing business, and I'm going to submit this. So that's been submitted, perfect. So then I'm going to link this back up and I'm going to go in here and we've got this data. Okay, so all we need to do for this step is make sure that your authentication is linked up, and then we're just going to edit the input data field name here. And so the reason why this is named file is because this is named file. So what you would do is basically look at the name here and make sure that this matches up. And after that, you can execute this step. And now we have successfully uploaded that file into the Google environment, and we've got this basically success message here. Okay, so that's that step done. Now we'll move over to the next step where we're going to take that file, which is now in the Google environment, and we're going to move it into the file store that we created in the first step. Okay, so you're going to click in here. Now what you need to do is you'll see in the URL there's a variable here for your file store. Okay, so what we need to do is go back to the first step here, click into this, and we've got the name of the file store here. So we're going to copy this, come over to the step again, and we're going to paste this in here. Okay, perfect. So that's the file store name, and then you'll scroll to the bottom and you'll see that there's a variable here for the file name. Okay, so I basically just taken the name from the file and dragged it in as the variable. Okay, so now we've successfully executed that step and we get this response. Okay, so that's telling us that the file is now in the store that we created, which is perfect. And that's it. So it's done all of the chunking, all of the embedding, all of that done automatically. Okay, so now all that's left to do is link up a voice agent to that store so that it can query it, and then we can basically start chatting to it and see how it works. So I've gone into Vapi and just set up a really quick prompt on how to query the data store. Okay, and what we're going to do is just link this up to the webhook. So you're going to come down to messaging, you're going to come to the webhook, you're going to click production URL, you're going to copy this, and we're going to paste this in here. And we're going to just put no authentication just for the purpose of this demo. Okay, we're going to save that. Then we need to set up the HTTP request to the actual document that we've uploaded. So again, we're going to make sure that our authentication is all set up correctly. And then in this bit of code here, okay, what we're actually doing is sending a system prompt to the LLM to be able to query the store. So you'll see here there's a bit of code, and this text is the prompt. So you can change this to your specific use case, but we're basically just instructing on how to query the document and how to produce the output. Okay. Now there's a few things we'll need to adjust here. So the first one is the user query variable. So we basically need to execute the step from Vapi, and then we'll have that data to be able to plug in whatever the question that the person is asking. So in order to do this, we're going to go back to Vapi. I'm going to make sure this is saved. And we're going to go over to Tools. So you're going to go over to create new tool, custom tool. Hopefully, yeah. And we're going to name this get user documents. And we're going to plug in the parameters which are in the description. And so this is a really simple one, just a query basically. So we're just getting the agent to pass over whatever the question the customer has as the query that we can then use to query the database. So I'm going to apply, I'm going to save that here. I'm then going to go back to our assistant and make sure that it has access to that tool that we just made. So get user documents in the tool section here. And I'm then going to go ahead and publish this. Now we need to basically just trigger the n8n workflow, the webhook. So in order to do that, I'm just going to set up a simple chat asking a simple question. So you'll see that it comes back as an error, and that's expected, so that's okay. So we're going to go over to executions, and we're going to, so you can see that we've triggered the webhook, and we're going to then debug this. And the reason it's not worked is because we haven't set the user query variable. But now, using this data that we've just taken from the webhook, we can then basically adjust this variable to what we want. So in this case, you can see in the body heading here, we've got the query. And so what we're going to do is delete this, and we're going to put in this query here. Okay, nice and simple. And then the other thing we need to edit in this is the store name. Okay, so what you're going to do, if you remember, I'll just save this. We're going to go back to the create file store step, and we're going to copy the store name. We're going to come back to this step, open up this code, and we're going to delete this and paste in the store name. Perfect. So what we can do now is we've edited the this bit of the code. We can execute the step to see if it works. So let's execute this. Okay, perfect. So we can see that it has gone ahead and successfully queried the document that we uploaded earlier, and it's come back with an answer. So after we got that, I went into the Vapi respond to webhook node, and I just pressed execute, where we're basically just transferring that message to the output to send back to our voice agent. So now that we've set all of that up, we want to give it a test to see how it actually works. So I'm going to test it against the document that I uploaded. So this was the document that has been uploaded. Okay, it's got some business information, and we're just going to test it to see how it does. So to begin with, I'm just going to ask it what services it offers, and then maybe ask a few questions about some of the other things that are included in this document. So let's go to the Vapi dashboard and let's talk to this assistant.
Hi, this is James from Summit Ridge Roofing. How can I help?
Hi, I was wondering what services you offer.
We offer residential roofing repairs and replacements, like leak repairs, shingle replacement, flashing, ventilation, and light commercial work.
I was wondering what your business hours are.
Our phone hours are Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're closed Sundays, but we do have an emergency line.
Okay, so it turns out I actually ran out of usage based on this free demo account, so I won't be able to show you any more. But you can go ahead and try this yourself. I hope this was a valuable video, and I would strongly recommend implementing this sort of system into your voice agents as opposed to having some sort of complex RAG pipeline. Because you can see this is super easy to set up and super quick with the response times as well. So I hope that was helpful. If it was, I'll see you in the next one.